Chevy Trucks Shooting Sports America. Brought to you by Ruger, Weatherby, and Winchester.
In the world of clay target shooting, you know you're playing in the major leagues when the game is international sporting clays. Here, targets fly faster, the angles are a lot tougher, and the combinations at doubles can be darn near impossible.
Hi, I'm Gresham, shooting editor for Sports Afield magazine, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this edition of Chevy Trucks Shooting Sports America. We're here at the Mount Tom Ski Resort at Holyoke, Massachusetts, to cover the 1994 Ruger Challenge of Champions. This unique sporting clays event, sanctioned by Sporting Clays of America, will pit some of the best shooters from here and abroad against one another on a clay target course designed just for this event. From high crossers at the very limits of shotgun range to close-in targets traveling at over 70 miles an hour, this layout has been designed to create the ultimate challenge in sporting clays for these championship shooters. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
With only the very best shooters in this Ruger Challenge, it really is tough to pick a favorite. In sporting clays, just as in golf, the course itself can make a big difference, creating a built-in advantage or disadvantage depending on the unique shooting style of each of these top competitors.
I've been to many places around the world, and always this shoot, for the past 3 years, has been world-class targets, there's no doubt about it. Ranks as one of the top shoots in the world.
I've competed in 4 world championships, and these are as hard as any I've shot.
Joining me on top of the mountain is Timothy Nichols, course designer for this event. Tim, we really got a championship field here, including some of the top English shooters who've been dominating international sporting clay shooting.
Oh, yes, we have, Greg. Stuart Clark, the only man to ever hold 4 British titles concurrently. Mickey Rouse, former European and world champion. But we've got some very good Americans. Charlie Schneibel, former Team USA captain, has refound his 91 form. He's shooting brilliantly. Andy Duffy, always a strong contender. I think most importantly, young Scott Robertson, a Texan, 23 years old now, has really found himself. He seeks out good targets here and abroad. You'll see him on the podium in international events very soon.
The competition starts off with a 25-target preliminary race, shot from 3 different stations, with single and double targets thrown at each position.
Earlier, I had the chance to talk with Fred Collins, president of Sporting Clays of America, about the course itself. Fred, what have you got in store for these shooters? Tell me about the course.
Well, we've got a 25-target course laid on today that will test the mettle, I think, of even the best international shooters.
Well, I know there are no gimme targets out there, but which ones do you think will really test these championship shooters?
Oh, there are several that I've seen and shot. Layout 1 has got a left-to-right crosser, never even got the second shot off on it. Layout 2, this right to left over here over the water, is so perceptibly difficult. They're going to have to watch that one. And, of course, the real test is going to be Timmy's Terror Teal. This one will dazzle him. It's about a 45 to 50-yard teal bending away from you. So this will test even the best.
That was perfect execution. See, I was perfect execution.
Take normal.
In the shadow of Mount Tom lies one of America's most historic firearms sites. Indeed, as the competition was underway on the mountain, the Springfield Armory was celebrating its 200th anniversary. Chosen by General George Washington as a place to store arms and ammunition, the Springfield Armory grew into one of the most important facilities for the design and production of arms in the world. Today, under the direction of the National Park Service, the Armory serves as a museum not only for arms, but also for many of the production methods that sparked the Industrial Revolution in America. Back on the mountain, the shooters were finishing the preliminary round on this extraordinarily tough course.
I would say the first 2 stands so far are world-class stands. They've got a few easy targets, a few hard targets. It's just a true test of skill.
Oh, I think they're amazing targets. They're very difficult, mind you, but they're very exciting, and they're definitely pulling the best out in the shooters, and we're all pretty tight at the moment, but we'll see how it ends up.
I like to shoot with the very best. It brings the best out in the shooter. It puts more pressure on you. I think you probably concentrate harder. Some days you can handle it, some days you can't. Shooting with the very best in the world like we've got here today brings the best out in me. Usually does.
Showing his great form on all targets, Stuart Clark led the field with a score of 21 out of 25. Not one, but three other shooters, Steve Milton, the Canadian champion, Charles Schnabel and Scott Robertson, all tied for second with identical scores of 19. In the Ruger Challenge, shooters with the first and second highest scores advanced to a final shoot-off. So stay tuned and we'll be right back with the championship round, a four-man shoot-off for Top Gun honors. In the final nine-bird shoot-off, preliminary round scores aren't carried over. So each of these four great shooters has an equal chance to come out on top and take this year's Ruger Championship.
I notice most of the shooters are shooting over and unders, but I see Scotty is shooting an automatic.
Yes, Scotty's been a Beretta team shooter, a sponsored shooter, for a number of years now.
Tim, what do you think is the most important ingredient for a shooter to become expert in this sporting clays event?
There are basically two categories of ingredients, Gretch. One is God-given natural talent. You've got to have very good eyesight and very fast reflexes. Then you've got to have a perfect sort of a mental attitude. Here comes Charlie Schnabel, shooting brilliantly, better than I've seen Charles shoot in years. No trouble at all. Hit it right in the center.
No problem there.
These four finalists matched target for target in the singles portion of this shoot-off. So as they headed into the doubles, it looked more and more as if a second round shoot-off would be necessary.
Now here's Steve Milton, the Canadian champion. Now here in the doubles, as so often the case in international shooting, these are report doubles. In other words, they're shooting the targets they've seen before, but now they're going to shoot two. Instead of having two shots at each one, they have one shot at each one. And as soon as they fire their first barrel, the second target comes out. That's why it's called on report, meaning report of the gun, the bang of the gun.
New shooter, C midday, D midday, on report. Oh. Hit, lost.
After round one, 6, 6, 6, and 6.
Indeed, after the first nine-bird shoot-off, all four finalists were tied with identical scores of 6.
First miss, you stop.
Okay, guys, draw for the numbers.
This meant a second miss and out shoot-off would have to take place, with Stuart Clark the first up to shoot.
Good luck, gentlemen. We're starting to shoot. Hey, normal.
Boom.
Well, Stuart waited a little too long to first barrel that. I'm surprised, because he's seen it before, don't forget. Previous time the shooters went through this. One might say that it's hardly just because he put on absolute, one of the more brilliant runs to shoot his 21 that I've seen in a long time.
But it's sudden death, huh, Steve Milton?
The two-shot single, he tried to make sure of it. He waited too long. His first barrel was shot in the woods. His second barrel, no chance whatsoever.
Now it was down to the last two shooters, Charles Schnabel and Scott Robertson.
E, normal.
5 in a row. Very nice. That's putting a mark on the scoreboard that is guaranteed to set some nerves on fire.
Really putting the pressure on young Scotty Robertson.
D, midday, loop up. Oh. Hit, B, midday.
Scott was up to the challenge, breaking all 5 single targets and tying Charles' score, forcing the shoot-off to continue with double targets, with Scott shooting first.
We'll shoot both pairs of, until you miss, of course, okay?
That was a wonderful performance by Scotty, wasn't it?
The pressure. Charlie Schneider really put the pressure on Scotty. I thought he may have swallowed the olive on that super mini, but he second barreled it at about 50 yards out. You've got to hand it to the kid.
He stayed with it.
Hit and hit. Second double, A normal, E normal, and to a pair. Lost.
Scott broke his first pair, but dropped a target on his last pair, opening the door for Charles. Charles now has the opportunity to win, but he must break all 4 targets of these difficult pairs.
Hit and hit. Second double.
Moment of truth coming up now, Gresh.
This is the one.
As so often happens when you pit the very best against one another, it comes down to the last few targets.
Well, we were in the 3rd round of the shoot-off. It just came down to the last pair, and no one hit it the whole day. And I was lucky to get one of them, and Charles made a brilliant shot and hit both of them, and that was enough to win.
You had to shoot the first bird fairly quickly, but you had to also make sure you killed it. I did that and then shot very instinctively, fairly quickly at the second, and got lucky on that bird. There's no other way of surmising it.
What a shoot-off. Charles, that was great. Congratulations. With us we have Fred Collins, President of Sporting Clays of America.
Charles, I would just like to offer my heartiest congratulations from Sporting Clays of America. Wonderful shoot-off, wonderful finish. Dave Tilden is with us from Ruger, and he has a special presentation to make now.
Charles, congratulations from Ruger, sponsor of this event. You beat some of the best shooters in the world, and we're proud to present you this new 30-inch 20-gauge sporter.
Thank you very much, Dave. Certainly was an exciting shoot-off. Some wonderful targets. Special thanks to Ruger for making this event possible for all of us.
Stay tuned. Coming up next, the Texas Historical Cowboy Shoot.
One night as I was in Brighton, graveyard shift.
There is perhaps no time or no place that better captures the American spirit than the Texas frontier of the mid to late 1800s. From cowboys and their longhorn cattle to the famous exploits of the Texas Rangers, the notion of rugged individualism, of true frontier grit, was captured in the action and deeds of the men and women who settled this rugged land. Much of the color and flavor of that era, especially skills with firearms, are still a part of today's Texas. And recently we had a chance to join a group of men and women who are keeping this great Western tradition alive. We're here in Columbus, Texas for the 3rd annual Trailhead Cowboy Gathering and Old West Shooting Competition, sponsored by the Texas Historical Shooters Society. More than 200 shooters from around the country are competing here in period costumes and with authentic firearms of the frontier era. While target shooting sports of all kinds continue to grow in popularity around the country, the attraction of this event goes beyond just good marksmanship. It's also an opportunity to step back in history, to savor a bygone era, and a chance to actually shoot the guns of the Old West.
I enjoy shooting for sport and pleasure anytime, and I enjoy this group particularly because they employ the old-fashioned firearms, a single-action Colt type revolver, Winchester lever-action rifle, and the old-fashioned double-barrel exposed hammer shotgun.
Good. That's a 125th anniversary limited edition Colt pistol. I've put stag grips on it. It's a lot of people keep them in an unfired condition, but I like to shoot everything I have. It's a very accurate pistol. It's historically correct, 7.5-inch barrel, 45 long Colt. It works very good on what we do. We reload all our ammunition. We use hard cast lead bullets that hit the iron targets and they splatter. you don't get any feedback. Nobody gets hurt out of a deal like that. So this is a very safe personal weapon.
Stay tuned and we'll be right back.
And now a shooting tip from Gresham, brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation.
No one wants to miss the first target in a round of skeet. And while high one is one of the easier targets to hit, newcomers to the game sometimes miss this target simply because they fail to set up properly for the shot. When standing on station one, there's a natural tendency for the novice shooter to look out over the skeet field. The result? That first overhead target will be well out at midfield and almost out of range before the shooter even sees it. This problem can easily be corrected by simply looking up. This way, you'll pick up the target as soon as it passes overhead, not way down range. Remember, there's no lead on this target, but don't hesitate to shoot the moment the target settles on the front beat. Breaking that first target is a real confidence builder, and the key to doing it consistently is simply look up. Using original or reproduction firearms dating from the early to the late 1800s, these matches are designed to recreate, to capture the style and flavor of shooting in the Old West. From firing single-action revolvers while mounted on a horse, to blazing away with lever-action rifles from behind a stockade. In many of these events, competitors are scored not only on the number of targets knocked down, but also on speed, the overall time it takes them to move, reload, and shoot through the various stages of a course.
I think it's the fastest growing shooting sport in the nation right now. And this bunch here started a few years back with 4 members, and now with this shoot here, you've got over 150 participants. Somebody as old as me, I was raised on B Western. So I was raised in a time where the good guy wore a white hat and the bad guy wore a black hat and the pretty girl kept her clothes on and we all knew who was who. And this kind of harkens back to that. We get a chance to play cowboy with real ammunition in a very safe scenario.
The women who helped settle the West not only knew how to carve a home out of the wilderness, they also knew guns and how to shoot them accurately. That frontier tradition still holds true today.
This is a special gun to me because I got it for my Christmas present this year. It's a new edition Cimarron Arms put out. This is the bird's head, the handle, and it's a 45 Colt. This is perfect for my hand, absolutely perfect. I didn't miss a thing today.
And with its authentic Western flavor, the shooting range here is unlike any other.
We had picked up the site, and I did the studies for it, the orientation, so as not to conflict with the other shooting area, the studies for the sound, so we will not interfere with the neighbors, the drainage, the soils, and so on. And then I designed the stages, and what I wanted to do was represent a different style of construction in the early years of Texas. So you have your adobe walls from the Mexicans, and then you have your stucco walls from the Spaniards, and your lap wood from the Anglos.
And when it comes time to shoot, what could be more authentic than protecting the stagecoach payroll from a gang of desperados? In this case, the props are truly part of the fun and part of the challenge in this competition. While shooting is an important part of this event, the Western lore gets equal billing.
Besides the shooting I've always loved, it's the history behind it. I've always been fascinated by it, and kind of also a frustrated ham actor. You get to play dress up.
The purpose of this organization is to promote safe shooting, gun handling, and Old Western history. Each of our characters adopts the name of someone who lived in history, 1850s to 1899. When we're at our shoots, they're called by their handle.
We look for the characters that are actual persons that lived here in Texas. The character I portray is Juan Cortina, which was a Spaniard that lived here during last century. A very colorful personality, but we do research
You got doctors, lawyers, judges, you got police officers, our range officers are game wardens. But when you come out here, nobody knows it. You're all cowboys, you're historical characters, just like I'm Tom Horn. And that's what most everybody knows about me. You know, they don't know what I do in civilian life.
In this competition, whether you're Tom Horn or Blackjack Ketchum, you get a chance to fire authentic rifles, six-shooters, and shotguns at targets set out in a variety of uniquely Western setups, each presenting a new and different test of Old West marksmanship skill, and more often than not, also a touch of shooting ingenuity. But whatever the challenge, the accent here is always on having a good time.
There, gummit.
Well, Pilgrim, I really like a place like this because a guy like me can feel right at home in a place like this, if you know what I mean.
Indeed, it's easy to believe that the members of the Texas Historical Shooting Society know just what the Duke means. Feeling at home in a place like this truly does have a lot to do with the appeal of Old West shooting competition.
I think I enjoy shooting the most, but it's close competition with the costuming. I really enjoy living in the Old West and wearing these type of clothes.
It's been really interesting to see how people have tried to find their heritage, their background, and gone into a lot of thought with their costumes and just all the activities going back to their heritage.
I love the Old West. I love the horses and the guns, the dress, the cowboys, everything.
It's to move away from a modern time for a short time, for a weekend, to give you the feeling of what it was like to be an individual and a free man in this country. I've always been fascinated with Old West movies, Gene Autry and Roy Rogers and that type of thing. And as I got older, my interest grew into collecting the Old West and shooting the firearms of the time period, and eventually dressing as if it were 100 years ago.
I was born out in the Texas Panhandle, lived on a ranch most of my life, and had to move to big cities to make a living. And I just would have been a cowboy if I'd have had enough money. You got to be a millionaire to be a cowboy, and I'm not a millionaire, so this is a way for me to enjoy being a cowboy and going back to my childhood.
Whether you grew up on a Texas ranch or grew up watching the Westerns on TV, there's something about the Old West that appeals to the young man or young woman in all of us. From cowboy boots and 10-gallon hats to six-shooters and lever-action rifles. Today, the Texas Historical Shooting Society provides all of us with a chance to step back and relive those times, and, if only for the moment, to feel young again. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Chevy Trucks Shooting Sports America, and that you'll join us again next time.
Chevy Trucks Shooting Sports America. Brought to you by Chevy Trucks, Browning, and Federal.